So these videos that we're going to be putting out, we're going to be talking about
anything we want.
Anything we want, yeah. Audio stuff, audio
Yep.
things. What actually, I don't know if we're going to be limiting this just to audio specific talks, but for now we'll just keep it to audio stuff because that's what we do as of now.
Yep.
Yeah, at least for now. But the topic of this week, and by the way, if you have any name for this section of the video, because we don't know what to call this show yet. We thought of some stupid names like Ramble Bramble, but that doesn't sound great. So if you've got any recommendations, just post them in the comments. So anyway, so this week we're going to be talking about...
This is Jay, by the way.
Yeah, this is me, Jason, and this is Brian.
Yeah. B.
Sorry. I'm on the right side, he's on the left side, because I'm usually right, he's not.
I am... neither.
But anyway, we're going to be talking about state of top of the line, specifically IEMs this week. And the main things that we currently have here are these 3 IEMs in front of us. The Sony Z1R, the Unique Melody MEST, and the Dunu Luna. Except for the Z1R, which Brian owns, all of these other units are borrowed from or loaned from friends.
Aside from these 3, there are like 2 more that we're going to talk about. One of them is going to be the Moondrop S8, which is very cheap in contrast with these 3, but still like one of the most prominent ones.
It's a very strong contender.
Very strong contender. Even though that like low price of $700.
Low price of $700.
Yeah, we don't have the Monarch yet. We haven't bought the Monarch yet.
Yet, we don't have that kind of money yet.
Yeah.
Because we spent all that money on the Z1R. Yeah. Brian did, I didn't. I spent my money on something else.
Yeah. You're fucking prostitutes.
No. Censor that shit out.
Nah, dude.
I did not spend my money on prostitutes.
And we're also going to talk a little bit about the U12T, which we both tried. And maybe it's interesting to have our thoughts on that, contrasting them and comparing them with these
and
4 other IEMs.
And just to recap you on the price of these, so this is the MEST Z1R and the Luna all go for $1,700.
The MEST universal MEST, which you have right here, is actually $1,300, but the custom one is about $1,700.
Why would they charge another $400 for that? I don't get it.
Because reasons, and they need to make the mold or something else. From what I heard, the universal one is actually better. I haven't tried the custom one because I don't have that much money to order one. Or I don't bother buying one.
Yeah, and the U12T, which we're also going to be talking about, costs $2,000.
And the S8 is about
$700, which is less than half of any of these IEMs. But again, it's a very strong contender. Now, let's just start off with what you think of all of these. You've had the Z1R for probably the longest. I've heard them on multiple occasions, but never personally owned them, so I've not been able to give a full-length head-to-head review as good as you could probably do.
A lot of people, especially in the country where we live,
Indonesia,
says that MEST is best. We're gonna get to that later. So first of all, we're gonna talk about each one of these. Are we just going to talk about each one of these, or we're just gonna talk about these comparing against each other?
I think we'll just give your quick thoughts about that.
Thoughts about each one.
Yes, and then we'll just get into more detail.
Okay. The Z1R is definitely bassy. It's definitely a thick sounding headphone. Although the lower mid-range is kinda not very thick. It has excellent resolution. All of these have excellent resolution. It has crazy amount of dynamics and timbre reproduction quality, and it's just an overall a wide sounding, mildly V-shaped, very good headphone, in-ear headphone.
In-ear headphones, yeah.
The MEST is a taller sound. I produce a taller type of open sound. It is a very complex type of configuration.
Yeah.
It has 4 different drivers.
Yeah,
why? I don't know why would you try. But for high-end IEMs, of course, you're gonna try a lot of shit.
Yeah, and just to recap, they have dynamic drivers, BA drivers, bone conduction drivers,
Yep.
and EST drivers, which is insane.
They are a bit cheaper than these two, but I think they are comparable in a sense, or yeah, I guess that's it. I don't really have a lot of thoughts about the MEST, like strong thoughts about the MEST, because we're gonna put it later. We're gonna if I get too specific, you will notice what I think about each one of them. The Dunu Luna. We're not gonna talk about it now. It has good dynamics. It has great resolution. It's an IEM.
It's an IEM. It's an IEM.
The U12T is an interesting one. It's a BA that sounds like somewhat DD-ish bass. It has the DD-ish bass type of sound, which is pretty interesting for a BA. The S8 definitely does not do that. See, I'm starting to do comparisons now.
Yeah.
Okay, the U12T is a well-renowned IEM with 12 BAs in it.
Yeah.
It's not even the craziest. The craziest goes to 18.
18 on the side. I think there's some Chinese company that's doing like 13 over side.
That's fucking retarded.
But we're not gonna talk about that. Not yet. We don't have it on our hands yet. Might sound decent. You never know.
I don't know. But yeah, it's well renowned. It has excellent tonal balance.
It also has Apex technology.
Yeah, it's just an excellent implementation of BA drivers. Of 12 fucking BA drivers in one single IEM. The S8 is something that blows the minds of what we expect from under $1,000. It has a very safe type of tuning. We already recorded a full review on these. Why do we need to explain it more? But that's it. It's harmonish. It's kind of not as shouty, I guess, as regular Harmon. It's a safer Harmon type of tuning. It has that BA type of timbre, but it's not that bad. It's actually a very well implemented BA for that price, definitely. Oh yeah, I guess that's it for my thoughts on the S8.
So I don't have as many thoughts as Brian does on all of these. My thoughts on the Z1R are pretty much on the same wavelength as Brian. I think they're absolutely excellent. They're mild V-shaped. They have absolutely nice dynamics. I think overall they're an extremely great IEM. My only problem with the Z1Rs and why I haven't bought them, aside from not having the money to buy them, is that they are not comfortable. To me, the fit just doesn't fit that quite well.
It's not the Z1. It's not you that chooses Z1R. It's the Z1R that chooses you.
I suppose that might be true. Yeah. Now, anyway,
you're not worthy enough. The Z1R.
Yeah. Now, anyway, aside from that, I think that's also my thoughts on the Z1R. They're just absolutely great. They have insane resolution, as Brian said. That's mostly
so
it.
we're just gonna talk about how good these things are yet. Not the negatives.
Yeah.
We're gonna get to the negatives in the comparison. So yeah.
And so my thoughts on the MEST are, it's an interesting implementation. There are 4
It's
drivers.
very, very interesting.
It is interesting, which we'll get to that at some point in time in this video. Overall, I think the fit is better than the Z1R to my ears.
Yes.
It's definitely bigger. But aside from that, I think the resolution of the MEST is great. But aside from that, I don't have a lot of other comments on the MEST. Which, yeah. Now, on the Dunu Luna side, Dunu Luna it's a very technically capable IEM, but I think I'll just leave it at that.
It's very comfortable.
It's fairly comfortable. I for me, it wasn't really...
Very small, very shallow fit.
Yeah,
it's not...
compared to all of these big boys IEMs here, they're very small. But
if you usually listen to speakers or headphones, and you don't like the feeling of having things jammed inside of you, like jammed inside of you,
yeah,
this sports a very shallow type of fit.
Yeah, compared
very
to...
comfortable and shallow type of fit, comparing to the others, especially this piece of shit right here.
Yeah, which goes very deep into the AOL, although it's very heavy.
Yep.
But aside from the Duno Luna, I think I've done a full review of the Moondrop S8s, and overall I really like the Moondrop S8s. I think they are a very well implemented BA IEM. 8 BAs, absolutely amazing, very safe tuning. And for $700, at half a price, it's absolutely great value. At $700, yes, at $700.
Even with the Blessing 2s running around?
Yes, even with the Blessing 2s running around.
So you think that the S8 is better than the Blessing 2s?
I would say, for my personal preference, I do like the S8s better. But we're gonna get into that comparison later on.
So are we comparing the Blessing 2s? Because I have the Blessing 2 right here.
We do have the Blessing 2s with us also. We have a stupid amount of IEMs with us today, actually.
Here is the fucking Blessing 2s.
Yes, but we'll get to that later on when we talk about the...
So this is going to be the proxy of the S8s.
I suppose it will be. But before that, just to get on my final IEM, the U12T. I think the U12T is quite an interesting IEM. The Apex technology, I think, is one of the best parts of it. I have I have a bit of sensitive ears in terms of when I use full sealed IEM. Sometimes when I use fully sealed IEM, sometimes my ears just kind of they pop, and I don't really like that. The U12T with the Apex technology doesn't have that issue. So because they have this vent but with proper seal so that you can still get proper isolation.
By popping, do you mean driver flex?
Not driver flex, but it's more like my eardrum kind of flex, because my right eardrum is kind of weak. Yeah, it is. I mean, I got a hole drilled in it once when I was a kid because I had sinus, whatever you call it. So yeah, that's that. And aside from that, technological wise, technicalities, tonality, I think is absolutely amazing. There's not a lot of things to be said about the U12T aside from it being quite awesome. So I think that pretty much wraps it up for short impressions for
impressions for all of these.
Yeah. So
let's get to the comparisons, shall we?
Yeah. So what should we start with first?
First of all, we will talk about the S8s first, okay?
S8s. We were gonna be going from low price to high.
The least inflammatory one.
Okay, then we can do that too. Yeah.
The least inflammatory one to the most inflammatory one.
The least damaging to the wallet.
Yep. And the S8 is... I think the S8 is...
Great, bad?
Technically... noticeably below these three.
Yeah.
Technicality wise.
Yeah, it kind of is.
The resolution is just not up to par. The imaging is... I think the Blessing 2 has better imaging. It's a bit less messy.
To me, that's interesting because I think the opposite. I think the S8s have better imaging than the Blessing 2s.
I think the Blessing 2 has a bit more better imaging because it can produce that forward type of depth type of placement, like instrument placement. When I listen to music on the Blessing 2s, I perceive the sound coming from in front of me instead like inside my head. I think it's quite a difficult feat for an IEM to do that. And it only happens to me with the Z1R. It does that type of vocal being in front of you. And it's not because of the vocal is pulled back on the Blessing 2s. I mean, it has that gain. Usually it would produce a shoutiness type of presentation, but it doesn't. To me, it doesn't.
So I think that's quite interesting because for me it's quite the opposite. For me, the S8s present the sound, or mostly vocals and instruments sound more forward to me than they do on the Blessing 2s.
Really?
They do for me, which I have mentioned that my ears perceive soundstage and imaging quite differently.
Okay.
I don't perceive imaging as accurately as other people, and especially soundstage. Soundstage to me sounds quite a bit more closed in. I very, very rarely perceive any sound to be coming in front of me. Even with the S8s, although I do say that they come in front of me, it's like ever so slightly. It's not even by that much. The arias, a little bit.
The arias
not as
is
much.
very good at front image, like
not as much as the HD800. Obviously, the HD800 was the first one that I felt that the sound was definitely coming from in front of me. But we're getting a bit off topic.
Okay.
So yeah. So speaking of the S8s and the Blessing 2s, I think aside from in terms of imaging and soundstage, for me, what makes the S8 better than the Blessing 2s, although the technicalities are indeed like barely different, if anything, if at all better than the Blessing 2s, I think the tonality for me just does it. I think the tonality for me is just that much better than the Blessing 2's tonality.
I think the S8's bass is not as good because it's a good, well implemented BA bass, but still this has DD bass, like DD slam and impact, though it's rated like less loud, like more quiet than the
less quantity.
Less quantity than the S8s. Still, it's perceived as more impactful here in the Blessing 2s. Why are we just comparing the S8 to the Blessing 2s instead of these three IEMs?
I don't know.
So against the Dunu Luna, I think the S8 lacks that bit of resolution, just amount of detail in the music, its presentation. I think the S8 has a bit more agreeable tuning, like not a bit more, a lot more agreeable tuning.
A lot more.
The Dunu Luna wins on the soundstage depth also, though it's not that wide in my opinion. The Luna.
Yeah, and I think this soundstage depth perception that you might perceive on the Luna, it might be also because it's a bit thinner than the S8s, I believe. They do feel a bit wider, I would say, but I believe that because of that lack of warmth and such, it might feel a bit wider than they actually are.
I in my opinion, even the Luna's treble is a bit scooped up. It's not that well contoured type of treble tuning, yeah, like in the S8. It just drops down. If you look at the FR graphs of the Dunu Luna, you would see that type of weird dipping coming from 5K, and it is quite apparent when you listen to the something like cymbal strikes doesn't sound as full-bodied, I guess. It sounds a bit weirdly scooped up right there.
I did kind of perceive that too. But for me, what does the worst thing about the Dunu Luna is probably that like lower treble peak. That lower treble peak for me on the Dunu Luna just makes it sound it just sounds a bit harsh most of the time, and also because of those scooped up treble, it just sounds a bit thinny. Also,
it sounds imbalanced in my opinion. It's not a balanced way to tune and
yeah,
to tune treble.
Maybe it might work with some music, though I can't think of anything that might work well with it in this kind of tuning department. But I think in general, just the Dunu Luna, in terms of tonality, I just, how do I say this? It's
a bit mid forward. I think just mid range forward. The lower mid range is very strong here. The bass extension is not that much. Why are we just bashing the Dunu Luna here, right? The S8 is way more agreeable in their tuning in general. That's it. However, the technicalities, yeah, as I mentioned before, it's not as good as the Dunu Luna.
Which is kind of surprising because there's only one single dynamic that I like.
And the bass impact, the dynamics is also better in the Dunu Luna.
Yeah, that's one thing you can give to the Dunu Luna.
That's part of technicalities though. So in overall technicalities, in every single shape or form, except for probably, is timbre production part of technicality. What do you think about that?
I don't think so.
I think it's part of a technique. It's part of like a fusion of tonality and technicality,
Like,
I guess.
I would say that technicality does contribute to timbre reproduction. I mean, if the technical speed of the bass is too slow or too fast, it might make timbre just sound off.
Yeah, if the transients are also off, it's a transient. And the texturing and everything else, and the resolution is not up to par. It won't sound realistic as we might want it to be. So I really like the lower mid range of the Dunu Luna too. It's not as, it is tuned a bit more naturally. It doesn't have that bass shelf like the S8. If you're looking for a naturally tuned, like a neutrally tuned IEM, it's pretty pleasant here. So the music that uses the instruments that use a very low frequencies as its fundamental note, like bass guitars, don't sound as emphasized as maybe the S8.
Yeah.
Against the, what do you think about the Luna against the S8? I think we already talked about it.
We've already talked about pretty much everything that's covered. And
okay, then S8 versus the MEST. You go first.
S8 versus the MEST, how do I say this? Tonality, I think, for me, the S8 beats the MEST in terms of tonality.
How
Technicalities, for my personal preference, quite a lot.
Okay.
If we're talking about what comes closer to neutral, I would say the MEST comes closer to neutral. I think the S8 veers off from that. I think the S8 overall is just a bit more, it's quite a bit thicker and also just a bit softer in the treble than the MEST especially. And I think that just reduces how quote-unquote neutral it sounds.
Okay.
Right? But I think the overall technicalities of the MEST compared to the S8s, I think the technicalities for the MEST are they just edge it over the S8s by ever so slightly. But I do have to mention that the MEST on some music, that I think it's the bone conduction driver that just has this weird, like, zing, kind of, not really zing, it's more like a scratching sound that happens for some songs. One song I can think of is one of Minut's song. I think it was Find Something. I don't remember the exact title. I totally forgot it just now. I'll have to look it up later. But yeah, and aside from that, the EST implementation of the MEST, I don't think is one of the better ones. It's one of the better ones, but I don't think it's one of the better ones. Definitely, it's definitely one of the better ones.
Have you learned a lot of the Jomos that sounds like shit?
Yes, I know. I misphrased that. My bad. But I don't think it's just there yet. I don't think we're EST ready yet. I think the ESTs in the MEST
very difficult. Yeah.
It just sounds splashy still. And I think for what, $1,700? No, $1,300 for the universal version. I just don't think that's acceptable now, is it?
I think it's a difficult implementation and they're trying to do too much.
Yeah, I think they 4 drivers in one IEM.
We should be more in depth in the MEST because we are not going to have a full review of the MEST anytime soon, which is very unfortunate because we need to send this thing back. However, for the other IEMs, like the S8 is going to be up soon, the Dunu Luna is going to be also up, and the Z1R is going to be sooner or later. Probably the Luna is going to happen before the Z1R, and the U12T, if we can get another loner unit. But the U12T is kind of like everywhere, in my opinion. Like a lot of people have to be honest. Definitely more than Lunas.
Yeah, maybe we can actually get one.
Maybe. Yeah, maybe. Jeff has one.
Oh yeah.
If only.
If only.
If only.
Jeff, if you're hearing this, we're counting on you, man. No pressure, though. No pressure. Totally no pressure.
No pressure. You're just gonna cry if you don't. Wait. Against the MEST, in my opinion, it's kind of like what Jason said before. Should we mention your name? Sure, why not?
Well, I mean, we have
mentioned our names before. What Jason said before, the MEST is still superior in technicalities, and that I think that's still what's happening. The problem with the S8 is their lack in technicalities against these three. The detail retrieval, the dynamics is just not up to par yet. The soundstage, the more expansive soundstage, is just not up to par yet against the MEST or anything else up here. The tuning is, I do feel that the MEST have a bit more flatter response, though their treble implementation is a bit due to probably about the zing in the ESAT driver, like Jason said before, tend to get sharp at cymbal strikes. I don't think it's the initial strike that's. It's not like, I don't think it's the fundamental tone. I think it's the harmonic tone that's problematic. After, yeah, what's problematic in the MEST. The fucking MEST.
The MEST.
I was about to say the M15. I know. It's a fucking gun.
No, it's the M5. Apex model. It's the Apex model of 64.
Oh yeah,
the M15.
Yeah, the M15. Yeah. Okay. Okay. The MEST. The bass is a bit better here in the MEST. It's not as dynamic as the Luna. It's not as impactful. It's not dynamic. It's not as impactful as the Luna, probably. And it's a much more flatter response. I'm not going to go through to the soundstage and everything because it's just simply better in the MEST. Against the Z1R, what do you think?
What are we going to be comparing first? S8 versus Z1R?
S8. We're still talking about S8.
I think the Z1R is... It's just that much better. It's
Tonality-wise?
Tonality-wise... It's a bit of a twist. Sometimes I would like the S8s because they're just a bit more relaxing. Some other times I would just like the Z1R because they're more exciting. It's like, but they're just only ever so slightly different. They're not that much different, I would say, in terms of tonality. They're on the same wavelength, not the same, on the same wavelength. They're quite warm, quite encompassing. I think the S8s are a bit thicker than the Z1Rs, especially in lower mids. But the treble, I think, representation of the Z1Rs are just quite a bit better than the S8s. Technicality is no questions asked. Z1R just slaps the ground, just wipes the
Slaps
floor.
the ass.
Yeah, just wow.
Yeah, spank it.
Yeah, it just destroys the S8s. I mean,
Yeah.
it's just it's expected for an
additional
$1,000.
That's what the technicality is.
If it doesn't, then I mean, what?
How about the timbre presentation?
I just think that the Z1R just does it better. I think the S8 just feels fuzzy in comparison, which you might prefer. Which I certainly, as I said previously, I do prefer the more relaxed presentation of the S8 sometimes, but I would say majority of the time, I think I would like the Z1Rs more.
How about the U12T?
U12T.
Oh, I haven't put my comment about Z1R. This is basically about what Jason said, but I actually hear the tuning of the S8 is a bit different. I mean, the bass shelf kind of came off a bit earlier on the S8 rather than the Z1R. The Z1R kind of hits a bit until about 200 hertz, like 200 hertz. The upper bass, mid bass, upper bass, that region. Then it starts rolling off to the mid range, going down in the mid range, which surprisingly does not bleed.
Yeah,
if you look at the graphs of the Z1R, you would see that that bass shelf is kind of deep.
It's kind of deep though.
Kind of deep though. Oh shit, kind of deep. Is it going to like mess up the fucking mids? No, it doesn't. It's fucking weird ass piece of shit, which is fucking good. I don't.
It's I wouldn't say it's a miracle.
It is pretty
but
weird. It's
commendable what Sony has been able to do with this
from this point, you guys would probably know which one we like the best.
Yeah, I don't think we have to state the obvious.
Yeah. Which one do you think is the best?
Which one? Now, before we get to that, we haven't talked about the U12T now.
Yeah, because it's not here. We should put a proxy for the U12T here. What do I have for the U12T? I think the only deserving IEM I have is the EX1000.
Big appeal.
The big appeal of the U12T. So, I don't have the picture of the U12T. Just imagine this thing as a U12T.
We'll just edit it, CGI and stuff.
Yeah, CGI and
Yeah,
stuff.
just put some JPEG there.
S8, Dunuluna, MEST, Z1R, and a U12T.
U12T, remember, this is the U12T, not the X1.
Okay, how about the blessing to the...
Oh,
No, I mean, it's the S8 versus the U12T.
No, this will get confusing very quickly, just to put it back. We don't have that much attention span.
Okay, how about
what were we talking
S8,
about?
the S8 versus the U12T?
Ideas. I think the S8s sound quite thicker than the U12T. U12T, again, I think it's more aggressive, it's more neutral signature. I think one of my problems with the U12T is that how I perceive the U12T when I am in a quiet listening environment and a loud listening environment. When I'm in a more louder listening environment, the U12T just becomes a bit irritating sometimes. The treble, I think, it becomes a bit it feels a bit sharper. It feels overpowering compared to the rest of the frequency.
Okay.
Now, technicalities wise, no questions asked. The U12T wins.
No, but the bass.
But not by much, though, I would say. The U12T doesn't win by that much in terms of technicalities.
But
the S8s.
Really? The resolution isn't
the treble resolution is definitely better, but the S8s just don't do that quite well. So,
yeah.
But the rest of I think the mids are not that far off. The bass.
I think the bass is much better on the U12T.
The bass, I think, in terms of technicalities, is better on the U12T. No questions asked. The S8s just feel a bit fuzzy. They're not as dynamic driver as the
defined.
Yeah, they're not as well defined. They don't have the snappiness that U12T does. Extension wise, I'm able to hear more on the S8s than I am on the U12T, but I think that's just more because of the frequency response. I think there's just more emphasis on the S8s. I don't think that's quite fair. I think overall, I'm kind of like, how do I say this? I'm kind of split between the U12T and S8s because I don't think that they're $1,000 worth of separation. Like, that's mostly just because of how much I like the S8's tonality, I would say.
Okay.
I just don't think it's $1,000 worth of difference.
In my opinion, the S8 and the U12T's treble, the S8's treble is less fatiguing, especially in the upper treble region.
Definitely.
The U12T, the BA in general have that type of grainy quality when they produce treble. It's type of like the BA timbre type of.
I think it might be just
something.
Might it be because of the TIA driver that they have?
The S8 does that too, a bit, just not by that much.
It's a bit softer.
It's a bit softer because of the more emphasis on the upper treble in the U12T. That might be annoying if you don't like that type of BA timbre. So it sounds more BA in the treble, but it sounds more dynamic driver in the bass. I think the impact and the proper amount of decay on the treble in the U12T is much better than in the S8. The 64 audio lineup just have that type of smoothed up bit of BA type of timbre. It's pretty difficult to explain. It's not just. It's kind of different from what the BAs usually sound like, and the U12T's implementation of the BA drivers for the bass. I mean, it's probably one of the best, if not the best, for BAs. That's just my opinion. That's just my opinion on these. The soundstage expansion is pretty similar. I don't think the U12T is very good at soundstage. The imaging capabilities is slightly better on the U12T. It may be because of the more closed-in stage. It doesn't image as well as it should be because it has a very good imaging, but just not as good as it should be with a wider stage.
Yeah.
It's a bit intense. Though, comparing it with the S8, they both have a somewhat intense type of sound due to the BA, but the tuning in the S8 is much more relaxed than something like in the U12T would present you with.
So, but is it $1,000 additional worth though?
Oh yeah, I think if you're really looking for that resolution or the extra bit of resolution, and you like, I don't know how to justify having a DD like bass if you can just buy a DD dynamic driver.
I suppose that's true.
Why would you want a BA that's sounding like a DD driver?
You can just get
if you can just buy a fucking DD driver.
And you're moving the camera, man.
I'm moving the fucking camera, man. With my existence, everything moves.
Yeah. Changes everything.
But I just don't know why. It's actually a desirable characteristics for the U12T bass to sound like a dynamic driver bass. Maybe if you just like everything about the U12T, you need to try one. You definitely need to try it before you buy it, because that upper treble might bother you, or you might really like it. Because I know some people who really like that type of open airiness type of sound.
Especially if you're hearing impaired.
Yeah. Holy shit!
Especially if you're hearing impaired.
Maybe, but if your hearing stops at like about 15 to 14k, you wouldn't even hear it. Yeah, because that's a 16k peak.
Yeah.
Okay. This is going to be an hour.
Oh god.
Fucking serious.
Cut this part too.
No, it's not. We're not going to cut it. No cuts, Jay. No cuts. How about the Luna? Oh, how about the U12T?
I've already spoken about the U12T.
Against... We already did against the S8, so we're gonna do the U12T versus the Dunu Luna.
U12T versus Dunu Luna. Just get these out of here. I mean, they're just not relevant here. I mean, just
why are you shitting on the Luna, Jay?
Because I just don't like them. They just sound tonally off, and if you're putting them against the U12T, I think the Dunu Luna only really wins in the fact that they have dynamic drivers as the bass, and they do feel a bit better in the bass. I think the texture overall is just slightly better than the U12T. It just slams and kicks harder in the bass. Mid-range might feel a bit smoother on the Lunas. Maybe.
Yeah, sure.
Just a little bit.
Yeah.
Ever so slightly, not by much. Like I'm trying hard to fight for the Luna here, okay? I'm trying to pick up points about the Luna.
Keep going.
They have better fit.
Yeah.
The cable is expensive.
I think the U12T fits better to me than the Luna. The Luna's kind of this notch here in the cable.
I'm just saying that because they're smaller, okay? I'm trying to give the Luna more points. Come on, just give it to me, man. I'm trying to just give it more points.
Okay. Keep going.
The cable is more expensive.
Oh yeah, the cable here is fantastic. You can change this. Holy shit! This is revolutionary.
But is it $200 revolutionary? I don't think so.
I don't think so. No.
Yeah, I don't think so. Dunu just get the cable out and we'll just cut off the price. I think, and that way you could probably be more competitive.
I think Dunu should keep the cables and just
change the IEM.
Yeah, change the IEM. The cable is fantastic.
They could do that also, but you know. Yeah. But anyway, I think that's pretty much all I have to say about the U12T against the Luna. Yeah.
I think the Luna has slightly better texturing, of course, like Jason mentioned before. It isn't as annoying in the treble region, especially in the upper treble region, as the Lunas. I don't have problems with the lower treble frequencies like Jason experienced. It sounds definitely more organic. Both of them don't have the best timbre, or like it doesn't present music as realistic as I hope it to be, especially for a dynamic driver, single dynamic driver. It's definitely more coherent though. It's definitely
I mean, there's only one driver, man. How incoherent can you get one driver to be?
Yeah. The resolution is better on the U12T, though for a single driver it's pretty impressive, in my opinion, to have something as resolving as this for a single driver. Dynamics in terms of the general of dynamics of the Luna, it's about just the same. I guess it's
maybe
maybe a bit better on the Luna. It's kind of disappointing for a dynamic driver to have a bit compressed dynamics here. It's kind of sad. Make this review because it looks beautiful. It's made of titanium. The cable's fantastic, but they just sound like
they nailed everything but the sound.
Yeah. The technicality is pretty good. It's on par with a lot of these. The soundstage and imaging is a bit wider on the Luna. It's not as intense as the U12T. Though the tuning is just like
it's a bit off.
It's quite off. Yeah. If like I said before, you have that dip thing going on with the Luna. So yeah, I guess that's it for me. I agree with a lot of things that Jay said before, like most of things.
Yeah,
how about the Luna against the MEST?
Do we have to keep comparing the Luna? Because I feel bad for the Luna at this point.
Yeah, we gotta do it because they're pricing big boy money, so they're charging big boy money, so we gotta treat them like a big boy.
The Luna versus the MEST. The Luna sounds more coherent.
but the MEST isn't the best at coherence though. Yeah, in my opinion.
It's definitely not the best, but $1,300, man. $1,700 for customs. You gotta do something about that. It's 4 drivers. You decided to put that into it. I mean, come on. You gotta give it some more work into it. Some more elbow grease into it, right? Yeah. But I think tonality-wise, just the MEST just beats them. Although the MEST itself, I don't think is the best in terms of tonality. Yep. But even then, I think the Luna just gets beaten out by the MEST. The MEST, I think, annoys me as equally as much in the treble region as the Luna does, although less often so than the Luna does.
Okay.
I suppose. Bass, I think
Luna's better than the bass. It just extends better.
Yeah, MEST. But and the bass of the MEST does feel a bit. It feels a bit blunt sometimes. Hollow and blunt sometimes.
Hollow and blunt. Yes.
It's not that bad. I perceive it. It kind of annoys me sometimes, but if I try to just ignore it, sometimes it's fine. But most of the time, when I try to just really listen to the message, it's just ever so prevalent. I think
Okay. In my opinion, these two. A lot of people they obviously said it before, that the MEST have excellent resolution. One of them was me. I think the MEST have very, very good resolution. But after listening to them more and comparing these to the other headphones on the table, in-ear headphones. It's just force of habit. I think the MEST have quite. It is a well resolving IEM, though its advantages in resolution is because of its somewhat compressed dynamics. The dynamics here. When you listen to something that has no dynamics, it will be perceived as more detailed because because everything, the nuance like if I move the table, you might hear something. It is more pronounced because it has more compressed dynamics. Because like the Anandas and the Arias, if you listen to both, because the Anandas has slightly more compressed dynamics, you will feel as if the detail is pushed to you even more. It's like more detailed type of sound, more detailed. It's more pronounced. But if you listen to them closely and slowly, and if you try to perceive what's in the aria and the Anandas, you would notice that the aria has the exact thing happening, exact things. You will hear what's in the Ananda in the aria, just that they are not as pronounced as in the Anandas, because Anandas have less dynamics. more compressed dynamics. While the aria, if you look even deeper in the aria, you would notice that they're actually more in the details than in the Nandas. I think that's what's happening in the MEST. Because when I listen to tracks that have a lot of ambience, like small details in the background, they are definitely more pronounced here. But when I'm looking for subtle, more supple details, like suppler details, suppler details.
We just had suppler, yeah.
In the fuck that, fuck you. more supple details in the MEST. I don't find that. I don't usually find that a bit more resolving than any other IEMs on the table, except probably the S8s. So, yeah, the dynamics are about. It's a bit better here. The tuning is just like what Jason said. It's better on the MEST. It's more open, more wider, more expansive type of sounding. And the imaging is also better here because of that. It's... The treble though, it kind of bothers me more in the MEST rather than doing Luna, because I don't actually have that problem with the lower treble region. The upper treble, the second harmonics here is kind of...
Of the EST drivers.
Yeah, it's kind of a bit painful for me.
Yeah.
And that's surprising because I usually have the ears of steel.
Brian just tolerates treble like he tolerates everyone else.
Yeah, like I tolerate myself.
Yeah.
Well, that's my opinion about these two. How about the Luna vs Z1R? This is gonna be fast.
Oh wait.
Now the Luna vs Z1R. What do you think about Luna vs Z1R, Jay?
Get the Luna out. There's nothing it wins at. It just
Really?
It doesn't look prettier. It doesn't sound better.
It fits better.
No, it doesn't fit better.
The Luna fits better.
It fits
what
better.
The fuck are you talking about?
I'm just joking around, man.
Jay is stressed out right now because it has been like 40 minutes.
Yeah, and I'm
fucking pussy, dude.
And it's damp as hell.
Who the fuck cares if it's damp? Turn on the fucking AC, it's less damp.
No, it'll be very loud. Anyway, Luna is not relevant if the Z1R is in the picture. Like it's just not relevant. It fits better, has better cable. That's it.
How about the mid-range?
The mid-range is Z1R is just better.
How about the bass quantity, Jay?
Bass quantity. Equal if not more on the Z1R actually.
Yeah, of course, going to be more in the Z1R, but is it more appropriate to what you preferred?
It is more appropriate on the Z1R than
because here is kind of similar to the EX1000. You really like the EX1000, right? Too. No, actually, I really like the EX1000.
He really likes the EX1000. He's just trying to impose his love of the EX1000 on me. I don't.
I really like the fucking
like
Sonys, man.
I like emphasized bass. I like big boy
Sony
bass,
fanboy. Oh yeah.
Now, just get the Luna out. It has no place when the Z1R is in the picture. $1,700 if you can get the Z1R, why not? Why get the Luna? Like, there's just no reason for it.
I think a Luna is like 2 steps below the Z1R in terms of
only 2 steps.
2 steps. I'm trying to be nice here because it has decent technicalities. The resolution is almost up to par. The timbre, the dynamic driver, it is made out of dynamic driver, so it's good timbre. It's made out of dynamic. I guess what's better on here, maybe what's almost up to par with the Z1R is it's probably the dynamic driver timbre, because it's obviously using dynamic driver so it ought to be good, right? No, it doesn't.
No, it doesn't.
It fucking doesn't. It fucking doesn't. Yeah, it's so fucking sad. Yeah, I guess the mid-range being a bit more forward, more pronounced than the Z1R, maybe more preferable, I don't know. But the bass on the Z1R might get overwhelming if for bassier tracks. You're definitely not getting one here. The bass extension is better here too. The bass texturing is better here too. The bass hits is also better in the Z1R. I don't know.
Nothing is better on the Luna.
Okay, I got the Luna with the U12T.
Goodbye Luna.
Huh?
Goodbye Luna.
Okay. I guess the U12T probably, if you prefer more impact, more in the bass. If you prefer more gentler tuning in the upper treble.
But again,
that's probably it.
But if you're more sensitive to the lower treble like I am, then the U12T will do it better than the Lunas.
The sound stage might be a bit wider, I don't know.
Resolution is on par?
So, maybe slightly a bit better on the U12T, even that. I don't know.
It's very hard to give the Luna more points here. It's just not comparable.
Yeah. If only it has good tuning,
then it would save it a lot of points.
Yeah, then it would be better than.
It will be way higher up in the ranks. But it's not. Simply not.
Okay. These are out. How about U12T versus MEST?
I think the U12T overall is just more coherent. I think the U12T, aside from when that upper treble just hits you, which I'm fine with most of the time, unless when I'm outside, I think the U12T is just, to me, it's tuned better than the MEST. To me, the MEST just overall the bass just feels
sounds messed
up. You just had to do that, didn't you? But yes, it does. It's not messed up. It's not messed up. It's just not up to par in the price range.
Okay.
Having the U12T and the Z1R as its competitors, I think, is just hard for the MEST.
It's hard for everything, to be honest. Even for something like a TR4T or the U18T.
Yeah, but considering that they also put in the dynamic driver in there, I would have expected it to at least hold a candle towards the U12T.
Okay.
Which, in terms of texture, I would say that the MEST does produce better texture than U12T. But I think overall impact and kick and such, I think it's quite comparable. And I think even the U12T, where I think the BAs might just actually edge over the DDs in the MEST here, because they just feel so much. They feel a bit more snappier. They feel a bit snappier. They kick quite precisely, unlike the MEST, where the MEST just again feels a bit hollow and a bit blunted in the bass.
Yeah, I think the bass on the U12T sounds a bit more solid, like solid rock type of bass compared to the MEST, but I slightly would still prefer the MEST bass over the U12T, because it has still that, it sounds less artificial in my opinion. Still sounds less artificial. It's not the best implemented bass of the dynamic driver, but it's still a bit better than the best implemented BA drivers. That's also an interesting topic, but we're gonna get to next time. The treble here both kind of annoys me, but on the I think I can bear listening to the U12T a bit longer, I guess. With the MEST, it has a wider, more expansive stage. It has also a precise imaging. I think the imaging here is better than the U12T. However, the sheer amount of resolution is actually better. And I still put it. The U12T still produce better, more defined resolution. A detail retrieval is also more finite, I guess, than the MEST. The MEST has that a bit of compression in its dynamics, which I have explained before. And yeah, if a lot of people saying MEST is best, I don't think that it is. It just isn't. that's kind of what it is then.
Yeah, maybe it's...
How about these two?
Z1R all the way. Man, what does the MEST beat in
Oh wait,
terms of
we're not even talking about this. We're talking about this now.
Yeah.
We haven't even touched the MEST and the Z1R.
Yeah. Now U12T versus Z1R. I think the Z1R is just better tuned. I think the Z1R is a more agreeable tuning. Better tuned might be for you if you're more neutral in terms of your sound preference. I think you would like the U12T more. But if you are looking for a more fun sound and a more agreeable sound, I think the Z1R are a safer choice. In terms of technical performance, I think the Z1R just edges the U12T over just ever so slightly. The treble region, I think, in terms of extension, you might feel like the U12T are better in terms of that. I think the extension, because of the TIA driver, just feels a bit better. But again, it might go against you and might just be, shrill and just might feel off a lot of times, and it might even be painful, especially for someone like Brian, who's normally very tolerant to treble, but for some reason doesn't really like the U12C treble, and the upper treble specifically.
I think comparing these two, it's more of there is an aspect of having better, more realistic timbre. Although I think the U12T is easier to listen. I think the U12T is just easier to listen. It has that better wow factor as it sounds very open and airy. It just sounds like an expensive headphone in-ear monitor. But the timbre production, it sounds, everything just sounds more realistic in the Z1R. Even though it has not very realistic amount of bass, it somehow produces sound very coherently, first of all, even though it has two different type of drivers. But it is just a simply more solid presentation, rather than the presentation of the solid hard presentation rather than in the U12T. The imaging and the soundstage is also more expansive in the Z1R. It has that type of grandeur type of presentation in the Z1R that I don't notice in the U12T, which is a bit more intense, more closed in, if you prefer that type of presentation. So yeah, guess you have anything to add between these two, because this is actually the battle of the giants here. We're talking about the Z1R versus U12T. I'm a bit on the fence of when you said that the U12T is a more hi-fi experience. I think if you were to listen to the Z1R, to me personally, I would say that if you are a budding audiophile, I think if you listen to the Z1Rs, you would probably perceive them to be it's a lot more agreeable. It's easier to listen to, and I think overall just this sheer amount of resolution and just how they present sound, I think is overall just more pleasing, and I think it's a lot easier to think that these are high quality IEMs compared to the U12Ts. And I think the U12Ts in general just are perceived more as a hi-fi signature, same as how why the Andromedas were as for such a long time, because the Andromedas just had this air quality, this extremely wide sound that made them feel like there was speakers, I would say, probably. That's what probably happened to me at first. The U12T just sounds more hi-fi, more open, more free, I guess. And when the first time I listened to the Z1R, I didn't fit them properly in my ear. I used a slightly bigger ear tip, which ruins the sound. If you think the Z1R is sharp, you probably don't have the fit right. We already did this. And now for the final comparison. Let me restart the camera. The final boss fight. I don't think it's the final boss fight. I mean, this is more of a final boss than that. But the more... Because I've never seen this comparison made ever on the internet, on YouTube. Maybe Hi-Fi Hi-Fi Beach Boy, BGER, made a review of these. Like
Yeah,
comparison
I think he
of these
did
two.
actually. I think he did.
But just, I think he only heated.
Yeah. So anyway, what I think about the MEST versus Z1R. Z1R definitely more coherent. Resolutions better on the Z1R, I would say, ever so slightly. It's really not that much difference, I would say.
I think that's because this have more compressed dynamics. If you're talking about resolution,
that might be it. But I don't think that's.
I don't think it's that far off.
I don't think it's just that far off.
It's not that far off, but people would perceive these have more resolution usually.
No, which they really don't as much.
Yeah.
They're just ever so slightly edged over by the Z1R.
Yeah.
And the overall tonality of the Z1R to me it's just a lot better. I think the Z1R is a lot softer overall. If you like a more aggressive tuning, the MEST will definitely be for you. Especially I think the the whole treble region of the MEST is just a lot more aggressive than the Z1R. If you like that, if you like more crunchy treble, if you like the EST signature for some reason, maybe you do. I don't, but maybe you do. Then definitely the MEST will be for you. But I personally believe that the treble presentation of the MEST, just that EST driver just ruins it in comparison compared to the Z1Rs. And I think in terms of bass quantity definitely is more on the Z1Rs. Texture is better on the Z1Rs. There's just not not a lot of points I can give to MEST. In terms of kick and slam, again, I think the Z1R does it better. The Z1R doesn't have this blunt, hollow feeling like the MEST does. So I just can't give that many points to the MEST in this comparison.
I think I can get quite in depth here because a lot of people really hyped up the MEST in Indonesia as if it is the best. But I'm disappointed to say that it's just not in the same class, like it's not even in the same playing field as the Z1R. Because if I am doing a review, I don't know if Jason does this too. If I'm doing a review, I usually split this IEM to a lot of different categories. For example, for bass, are we talking about bass texture, bass depth, bass extension, bass impact, and everything else. The mid range, are we talking about the upper mid and the lower mid balance and everything else, treble sharpness, or like more extended everything else, and that, or like texturing, yeah, you know the usual stuff. When comparing these two using that type of format, it's very difficult for me to conclude that the MEST is even in the same playing field as the Z1R. When listening to music that has that type of, when you listen to a demanding music that needs realistic timbre representation, for example, it's not really edited. The music is just raw type of bass guitar, for example. It's a raw bass, or like birds chirping, or like police siren, like those type of music, just recorded and just put inside the music. I don't really know if there are some albums that is actually promoted to be not edited for audio files, to not really edited in the tone, or you get it, okay? I believe that the Z1R has the ability to produce a more realistic type of sound than the MEST. It just is like thunderstorms, sounds more impactful. However, in here it just sounds like crumpled piece of paper, like that, like snapping noises. There are a lot of music that has snapping noises, right? A lot of jazz music has that, definitely. But it sounds more organic here and more artificial here. that's like a class higher type of difference, in my opinion. You might prefer the more relaxed type of bass in the MEST. However, quantity is subjective. You might want more quantity in the bass. Bass quantity is, in my opinion, subjective. However, everything else in terms of texturing, layering, like even they have a similar soundstage width, and even the depth of the soundstage is much better in the Z1R because of that less compressed dynamics, better dynamics. So yeah, for people who think MEST is best, I am sorry. I apologize. Oh, no, actually I don't fucking care. That the MEST is not the best.
It's just not.
It's just not the best. If we're gonna class, like, there are like multiple classes of IEMs, probably this is going to be the top dog. MEST is going to be right here, and Luna and S8 is probably right here. I would rank it like this. What do you think?
I think that's pretty fair, I would say. I think for me, I think Luna might just go a little bit backwards. I think the S8 just tonality over technicalities, but that's a topic for another time.
That's a topic for another time, because I actually prefer the latter, technicalities over tonality.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's it. That's it for the video today. See you next time. Godspeed.